Your Excellency, welcome to Blic and thank you for this interview. We are recording this the morning after President Vučić's very prominent remarks on the public TV in Serbia. First, he said that American sanctions regarding this are basically done deal and confirmed. And secondly, he said that he's going to Moscow for the Second World War victory parade in May next year. Do you perhaps see the Moscow trip as a follow-up to sanctions or reaction to sanctions?
I don't know about that. I mean, you know, trip ideas for 6 months from now are something I don't know enough about. With respect to NIS, again, I don't want to speculate on sanctions or talk about sanctions ahead of time, except to say that with respect to NIS, there's been a lot of concern about the fact this was Serbia's really most important refinery. It was given or sold to the Russians. The Russians have done very well with it. It's generated a lot of money for Russia. I don't see a lot of the money coming back here. I see it's money that I think has been very helpful to Russia. And so I think understandably, we've looked at this, looked at it very carefully. And I think the issue, and I think the most important point, is to reassure your viewers, this is not targeted at Serbia. It's certainly not targeted at the Serbian economy. This is an effort to really deny Russia its ability to prosecute a war in Ukraine using Serbian money. So we'll see how it plays out, but I can assure you we're looking at it very carefully with a view not to interrupt or cause any problems for Serbia's economy.
Do you feel that the Serbian public is getting kind of a mixed messages here? On the one hand, there is talk of sanctions and how Serbia is failing to deliver this Western narrative towards Russia, and on the other hand, we have phone talk between Presidents Vučić and Zelensky last night, and President Zelensky publicly saying that he thanks Serbia for its financial and humanitarian help, and even he talks about aligning the perspective of the EU enlargement process.
You know, Serbia has for a long time pursued its very independent, one could even say non-aligned foreign policy, and for some people that's a mixed message. My own view is I'm very pleased to see the degree to which Serbia has developed this relationship with Ukraine. It is probably the central issue we face in European security. It'll be talked about next year, 10 years from now. It'll be talked about 100 years from now. And one of the big questions will be how countries handled it, how they lined up on it. And I think Serbia has been a very important part of trying to help Ukraine. I'm very pleased, for example, Serbia sent an ambassador there. They've formed an embassy. Serbia has looked to help Ukraine in a number of ways, including in the all-important humanitarian service. I mean, every day Russia is attacking civilian infrastructure for the purpose of essentially making life miserable for civilian population in Ukraine. I think Serbia has done a lot to help there, and I'm very pleased at that direction. I think it has great meaning for for the legacy, really, of Serbia during this very difficult time in Ukraine.
How do you see the role of Serbia's head of diplomacy, Mr. Đurić, in all this process? It seems that with his appointment that things started to get along a little bit more with this Ukrainian war issue.
You know, I'm not a spokesman for Mr. Đurić. I'm not a spokesman for the foreign ministry, but I think Serbia is an important player in Europe. Serbia has a perspective on the rest of the world, whether it's in the global south and Africa and South Pacific. Serbia's a player. And I think they bring a lot to the table. And I think to kind of run that kind of foreign policy, to be active, to be engaged with a lot of different countries, a lot of interests, whether Middle East or Africa or whatever, I think you need pretty energetic and very smart people in the foreign ministry. And without being a spokesman for the ministry, I just got to tell you, Serbia is very fortunate to have people of that caliber, of the caliber of Mr. Đurić in that ministry. I think Serbia has done very well.
We are in the final days of 2024, and I know how passionately you want to rebuild Serbian-American relations, but it seems that one step forward, two steps back, or at least one step forward, one step back.
Oh, we've done better than that.
Yeah.
I mean,
but Germans and French seem to, for 25 years now, since the bombing campaign, they seem to reconciliate quicker than Serbians and Americans. Are we moving fast enough?
I think we're moving ahead. Would I like it to be faster? Yes. Would I like it to be a more direct route? Yes. But in diplomacy, sometimes the shortest distance between two places is not a straight line. It involves some curves as well. I think Serbia and the United States, we really try to step up the dialogue process, try to understand each other, do a lot more listening, which I think is a skill in diplomacy that sometimes people don't think of. You know, to learn stuff, you have to listen. It's hard to learn things when you're talking. So I've tried to understand better. I've tried to see where we can find ways ahead. Look, we have a disagreement on Kosovo. I'm not here to tell you we don't. We obviously have a disagreement on Kosovo, but the point is we shouldn't let a disagreement in one area retard our ability to work in other areas. So I think it's going well. Is it as fast or as good as I'd like it? No, but I'm kind of an impatient person.
So you feel that there was a progress in 2024, even with the Kosovo issue, even if we are having all this
I think there
turmoil?
is. I think there is a lot of progress. I think we're doing a lot of things together, including, I think, even our capacity to talk about issues like Kosovo is better than it was before. But we also talk to Serbia about so many other foreign policy issues. I mean, it used to be that our relationship with Serbia was all about these bilateral problems. But as Serbia has grown in stature, and I think that's a fair way to put it, Serbia has opinions about other issues. So when we talk to Serbia, it's not just about U.S.-Serbia, it's about, you know, our understanding of things in the Middle East that Serbia, I think, has some insights to. Serbia has some insights into the situation in Ukraine, what might be a way forward. And I think it's very important for us to be listening and understanding. First of all, I think we need to understand where another country is coming from, look for the areas where we agree, try to broaden that agreement, and I think we're trying to do that here in Serbia. So I like the trajectory that we're on, even though I'd like more. But, you know, no one should be patient in life, because patient is often a synonym for not doing enough.
You mentioned where the country is coming from. I want to see where Kristofer Hil is coming from.
Yeah.
And what motivates you to do this complicated job in Serbia? You travel the world, you have a vast diplomatic experience. You could be living in Denver, watching Jokic live every other night.
Well, those are expensive tickets, just to let you know.
But nevertheless, your wife comes from a paradise on earth called Treasure Island, you can imagine. And I ask the viewers and readers of this interview to Google Treasure Island, Florida, to see what does it look like.
Yeah.
If average Serbian would have a choice to watch Jokic live or live on the paradise beaches on Treasure Island, you would probably be the last man here in Serbia left alone. Everyone else would go to the States. What motivates you?
You know, if every day in your life is like a holiday, to have a holiday can be as tedious as to work. Meaning, I think you need challenges every day. I think you need to have a focus of what you want to see accomplished. I've tried over the course of my diplomatic career to have, to go after interesting and tough places. I don't want to go after hopeless situations. That's a recipe for
so we are not a hopeless situation.
Definitely not a hopeless situation. I mean, hopelessness is a recipe for being rather profoundly unhappy. But when you can take on a tough issue and move it forward, I worked on North Korea. That was a tough one. I worked on Iraq. That wasn't always fun. And I've worked in other circumstances. Now I'm working in Serbia. I find the challenge great. And I might add that the best assignments are ones that have challenges, but basically you like who you're dealing with, and that's my situation. I enjoy living here. I enjoy talking to people. I know a lot of politics in this country. I get a little tired of that. I'm a pretty happy person.
When you mentioned dealing with people here, you get a lot of critique from both sides of a political spectrum. Whenever you say something and you talked enough, asked and answered all the most important questions in the past few days about lithium, about student blockades, about everything in politics. And somebody is always not happy, whether the members of the government accusing you of meddling into internal affairs, or the member of opposition accusing you of basically supporting corruption and working for Vučić. How do you feel about that?
Well, that part is not a lot of fun, but sometimes people need to understand that I'm not working for Serbia. I'm working with Serbia, and I'm working for the interests of the United States government. I think our interests overlap with Serbia. I think our interests in some ways are similar, and I believe in the concept, I believe in the idea of a U.S.-Serbian relationship that's better than it is now. So that's what I try to do. But I think in diplomacy and in life in general, you're never going to make everybody happy. And so one thing I try to do, it's always a challenge, is don't personalize things. When you start personalizing things, it gets a lot worse. And the other thing you try to do, this may be not your goal, but it's my goal, is in interviews, you try not to personalize things. Like if I have a problem with somebody, it's much more effective that I take it up with the person rather than do it through television.
Now, I don't want to ask you questions on the individual topics, hot topics in Serbia. It's all been asked and answered in the past few days. Everyone can Google it. But I want to ask you a specific question that overarches all these questions. And it's a question that the researchers of the public opinion in Serbia ask all the time, and they claim that the answer to this question can predict the outcome of election and changes in perhaps government and other important topics. And the question is Serbia going in the right direction?
My perspective here, being here, but also having worked on Serbia in the past, standing back, looking at the trends here, and my answer to you is it's moving in the right direction. Now, some people would take great issue with that. They say, how can you be so naive as to think this country is moving in the right direction? And I understand people have their frustrations. I understand that when you live in one place, you have a lot of frustrations, and you might conclude that things are in the wrong direction. But I think when you have the perspective that I've had of being away, then coming back, you see that it's a country, it has an ambition. Serbia has an ambition. It has people who are ambitious. Sometimes this ambition is frustrating because it means that people are leaving Serbia to fulfill an ambition. I'm seeing a country where more and more people can live out personal ambitions and live out a national ambition by being here. And I find that encouraging. some people are just very pessimistic by nature, as if they don't want to be disappointed, therefore always stay pessimistic. The problem is with that is that I think sometimes it just feeds on itself. And that I think people, you know, again, in your personal life as well as public life, you have to stop and think, where are we and where are we going? And I feel encouraged by it. I'm sure, you know, I'll get some hate mail as a result, but I think it's going in the right direction. And you have to compare yourself to other countries to understand why I do believe it's going in the right direction.
Is this positive trend in public opinion researches regarding the European Union in Serbia also part?
Yeah.
Do you see it also as a part of this positive trend? Because after a few years of EU faring fairly poor in the researches, this is the first time that two independent researches show that EU support is basically rising.
Yeah, I think it is. I think it's been frustrating. I mean, Serbs, you ask many Serbs about the wait to be in the European Union, they tell you, well, it's been 17 years. Of course we're frustrated. But first of all, you got to believe in the logic of being part of the European Union. And when I think of the logic, when I think of the logical destination for Serbia, I don't see it as Serbia kind of being alone. Mm-hmm. I think Serbia needs to be in a bigger structure, and the bigger structure needs to be respectful of sovereignty, needs to be respectful of different points of view. And I think Serbia can get that out of the European Union. And I think people are kind of sensing that. There's a lot of pluralism within the European Union. They're not all looking, all those countries, 27 countries, are not looking at everything in the same way. So I think Serbia can fit into that pluralism. But ultimately, and you know, I'll fall back on statistics here, I think it's going to be better for the Serbian economy to be part of the European Union. I really do. I mean, I could be wrong. There are, you know, I never describe myself as having a 100% view of something, but I think it's probably better for the Serbian economy. It's so interesting when you travel out in Vojvodina and you see all these foreign factories. Why are they all stacked up there? Because they've sensed that Serbia is going to be a member of the European Union. A better relationship with European Union, I think Serbs have recognized that's important, and now they're seeing it. They're seeing a lot of energy, some real vigor in kind of reaching out to Europeans, trying to explain Serbia's point of view, understanding a European Union point of view without kind of causing a clash. You know, I know it's easy to be cynical about things that happen here. I get that. I get the sort of sense of concern that it hasn't moved and that sometimes, some days, it'll be in the wrong direction. But I think generally we're looking at a country that's moving forward.
Let's move forward 2 years, 3 years basically, to the Expo 2027. Yeah. President Vučić said basically that US announced its participation in the Expo. Yeah. How do you feel about Expo 2027 and the American?
You know, it's interesting. Yes, first of all, Serbia won this, and they won it against cities in Spain. They even won it against Minneapolis in the U.S. So it was a pretty serious effort, a real effort to cash in on some diplomacy, because Serbia got some countries to go along with them that we might have expected to get. So it's a real triumph for Serbia's diplomacy to have landed this thing. It's a kind of way of Serbia to announce a kind of different future. Serbia is not just some small Balkan country. It's a country that's really being out there in the Central European plain now, physically. And I think it's a country that is going to expand its scope because of this. And so when the U.S. looked at this question of do we put a pavilion, the answer is yes. We want to be associated with Serbia's ambition and its great capacity to do more. So we're going to be there, and we have to raise some money. That's always what you got to do. You have to go to American companies, and I must say, when I worked in academia, where I always had to raise money for buildings, and I must say my handshake went from the normal handshake to something like this. So we'll have to raise some money from our companies, but we'll do it, and we'll have a presence at Expo 27 that's appropriate to our optimism about this country.
At the same time, Russia and China also announced participation in Expo 2027. Do you see this perhaps in 3 years from now as some form of geopolitical battle for hearts and minds of Serbian public opinion?
You know, I think what I want is for Serbian Serbs to look at America and say, we admire what they're doing and we'd like to do some things like that. I don't like to see this as some kind of competition where we elbow our way to the front of the line by pushing down, you know, some other country. I think we have to compete with our model of how we do things. And when I talk about a model, I'm not just talking about growth rates, economic growth rates. I'm talking about how we solve problems. As for what it's going to look like in 3 years, I do hope, to the point of I do pray for an end to this, a just end to this terrible conflict in Ukraine. I think most Americans, and I've spent a lot of time in China because I was handling East Asian affairs for the State Department. And I think many, and probably most Americans share my desire for a better relationship with China. We have a lot of work to do in that relationship, but we don't look to see relationships with countries like China based on competing for the love and affection of a country like Serbia.
And the last question, but very important for us here in Serbia, where will Kristofer Robert Hil live in 2025? Belgrade, Denver, Treasure Island?
Well, anyone who's married knows that the first question you'd have to do, in my case, is ask Julie. I don't know. I've always been a little restless. I don't know if I'll live in any one place. One thing I can assure you is wherever I am, we'll never forget our time here. This has been a very, you know, depending, it doesn't matter how old you are. The question is how much you learn and how, you know, what inspires you. And so, you know, I think it's fair to say both Julie and I will, regardless of where we end up, Serbia will be very much in our hearts.
Thank you, Your Excellency. Thank you for speaking for Blitz. I wish you Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year's holidays. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.